The entire wild 70-year story of artificial intelligence, this journey of brilliant minds, crushing setbacks, and breakthroughs that have literally changed the world, it can all be traced back to one single powerful question. So today, we're going to dive into that history and figure out how on earth we got to where we are right now.
This question, right here, this is the seed from which the entire field of AI has grown. It's the challenge that's driven decades of research, fueled just, boundless optimism, and really defined the ambition of creating intelligence outside of ourselves. And the person who framed this challenge so perfectly, what was Alan Turing? Back in 1950, in his paper Computing Machinery and Intelligence, this guy, the father of modern computing, didn't just build machines. He dared to ask what they could truly become. This paper basically set the stage for everything that would follow. Okay, so to really get how we ended up with today's generative models, we've got to trace this whole journey. We'll start with the ancient dream of automated logic, then we'll witness the official birth of the field itself, we'll navigate the crazy cycles of boom and bust, the famous AI winters, then we'll get into the deep learning revolution, and finally land on the AI horizon and all the complex stuff we're dealing with today. All right, first things first, let's go back. Way back. Because the idea of an artificial mind, that's not a product of the computer age. It's a philosophical quest that's thousands of years old. The groundwork for all this was laid down piece by piece, over centuries. It really starts with Aristotle and formal logic, the basic idea of rule-based reasoning. Then you fast forward to the 19th century, and you've got George Boole creating the algebra that would become the literal language of computers. And this all leads up to Turing's theoretical Turing machine in 1936, which proved that a single machine could, in theory, solve any problem a person could, if you just gave it the right algorithm. And this is where you really see Turing's genius. To avoid the endless philosophical debate about whether a machine is actually thinking, he just proposed a practical test. Could a machine fool a human judge into believing it was also human? For decades, this became the benchmark, the absolute North Star for the entire field of AI. Okay, so the theoretical foundations were all there. And by 1956, this sparked this new conviction among a group of pioneering scientists. They basically said the time has come to actually build a thinking machine. And they thought they could get it done, and get it done soon. And these are the founders. This is the starting lineup for AI. You've got John McCarthy, who actually came up with the term artificial intelligence for the conference, Marvin Minsky, Claude Shannon, and others. They genuinely believed they could make a huge leap forward if they just got a select group of brilliant people together for a single summer. The optimism was just off the charts. And, their optimism was fueled by some pretty incredible early successes. They had programs like the Logic Theorist that could already prove mathematical theorems, a task that seems like it would require pure intellect. This whole approach was called symbolic AI. The idea was that intelligence was basically a game of symbols and rules. You give a machine the right symbols and a rule book on how to manipulate them, and bam, you've got intelligence. But that early summer of optimism, well, it couldn't last forever. It turns out the leap from proving theorems to, say, understanding a simple conversation was way, way bigger than anyone had imagined. And that led to a very harsh reality check. Listen to this quote. It just perfectly captures the boundless confidence of the time. The pioneers really believed that human-level intelligence was just around the corner. They were getting headlines, government funding was pouring in, but making promises is easy. Making progress is hard. And then, the crash. The problem was, these early AI systems were brittle. They were fantastic in these narrow, logical worlds, but they completely fell apart when they faced ambiguity or just plain old common sense. Add to that the limited computing power back then, and, well, the promised breakthroughs just didn't happen. So, the funding agencies pulled the plug, and the field was plunged into the first AI winter in the 70s, with another one following in the late 80s. So it became pretty clear that a fundamental shift was needed. The old way, symbolic AI, was all about painstakingly handcrafting rules for the machine to follow. The new way, which was just starting to gain traction, was machine learning. And the idea was simple but totally revolutionary. Instead of feeding the machine the rules, you feed it the data, and you let it figure out the rules for itself. But before this new way of thinking really took over, the old-school symbolic approach had its absolute crowning achievement. In 1997, IBM's Deep Blue beat the world chess champion Garry Kasparov. Now, Deep Blue wasn't a learning machine. It was the ultimate expression of that old symbolic AI, a brute force computational monster explicitly programmed with chess rules and the raw power to calculate millions of moves a second. It proved that in a perfect rule-based world, pure computation could, in fact, beat human genius. But the real world isn't a chessboard, is it? To conquer all of its messiness, AI needed another revolution entirely, and this one was going to be fueled by three things: massive amounts of data, unbelievable computing power, and an old idea whose time had finally come. These three researchers, Geoffrey Hinton, Yann LeCun, and Yoshua Bengio, are often called the godfathers of AI for a really good reason. You see, during those AI winters, when almost everyone else had given up on the idea of artificial neural networks, they kept the faith. They just kept working, refining the algorithms that would one day become the engine of the deep learning revolution. And 2012 was the big bang moment for modern AI. A model called AlexNet, built by Hinton and his students, entered this big annual image recognition competition. And it didn't just win, it absolutely destroyed the competition. Its accuracy at identifying objects in pictures was so much better than anything that had come before it that the entire field just stopped and took notice. The era of deep learning was officially here. So if Deep Blue was all about pure calculation, AlphaGo was about something that felt a lot like intuition. The game of Go, it has more possible moves than there are atoms in the known universe. You can't use brute force. It's impossible. Instead, AlphaGo won by combining deep learning with something called reinforcement learning, which basically let it teach itself and develop a feel for the game. When it beat the world champion Lee Sedol, it had conquered a game of immense creativity, a feat most experts thought was still decades away. And that brings us right up to today. Having mastered analysis and strategy, AI took another giant leap. It went from just understanding the world to actually creating new things within it. The huge breakthrough behind modern generative AI comes from a 2017 paper with a great title, Attention is All You Need. It introduced something called the transformer architecture. Before this, models had to process text one word at a time. The transformer, though, could see the whole sentence at once, and it uses this mechanism called attention to figure out how every single word relates to every other word. This is the key. It's how a model knows that the word bank in the bank of the river means something totally different than in the bank gave me a loan. That deep grasp of context is what unlocks the power of models like GPT. And the impact is now spreading everywhere. I mean, this technology is way beyond just chatbots now. In healthcare, it's spotting early-stage cancers in medical scans with, superhuman accuracy. In scientific research, it's predicting how proteins fold, a problem that used to take years to solve. It's the core engine driving progress in autonomous cars and complex financial modeling. Generative AI has officially moved out of the lab and into the real world. But, and you knew this was coming, with this incredible power comes some pretty profound responsibility. As we weave these systems deeper and deeper into our society, we're being forced to confront some of the most complex ethical questions of our time. We have to ask ourselves some really tough questions now. Like, if an AI learns from the internet, how do we stop it from absorbing and amplifying our worst biases? How do we protect our privacy when data is the very fuel for this technology? What does the future of work even look like with all this automation? And as we keep pushing towards so-called artificial general intelligence, AGI, the ultimate question comes up. How do we make sure that something that could be way smarter than us stays safe and aligned with our values? And that really is the ultimate takeaway. The history of AI isn't just a story about machines. It's a story about us. It's about what we value, what we prioritize, and what kind of future we actually want to build. The code we're writing today is going to shape the world of tomorrow. So the final question isn't just for the researchers, it's for all of us. What values are we going to choose to encode?